Hi everyone, this is Susie from Minnesota, and today I'm just going to go over how I have created my flower beds. Say it's been at least 10 to 12 years since I've been creating them, and I got this inspiration actually from a comment, and I'm just going to go over like how they've been created and the thought process behind it. They have evolved a lot since at least 10 years ago. So you can kind of see here is my property line. So I created that bed just for a little privacy. I make sure to keep it away from the property line so when they're mowing their lawn they're not getting hit in the face by shrubs, and I keep it pretty trimmed on the side too to make sure. But I did that for privacy. And then these two yew shrubs over here were the first shrubs I put in. And it was just put into the lawn. There was no edging, there was nothing. And then I had the cement done here. So then I decided to add this on to this area. Sorry, just looking. And the one thing is I think when you first start out with gardening, some of the biggest mistakes you make is going too small. This is definitely enough room from the house to the shrub. The only problem with these shrubs are they're a bit boring, but I don't want to get rid of them because they definitely hold up to the winters here, and the snow just packs these down to where I'm surprised that they even bounce back. So you can see I have my hose laid out to how I want to figure out the next area, and my gardens keep evolving. And I'm just kind of leaving it and getting a feel for it. I keep moving the hose. That's what that big pile of mulch is for. I'm not going to be doing any planting this year. It's just enough where I'll be laying cardboard down, putting the mulch on. I'll be digging up the turf and getting ready for next year. But yeah, these two shrubs were the first two. This is where having one more in here would have made sense. But as a first-time gardener, you learn things along the way. So now I have to figure out what I want to put in here. This area is tricky. I have tried 4 different shrubs there, and it could just be me not watering it enough, just because between these 2 shrubs and then the tree, it's probably taken up a lot of the moisture, and I just didn't keep on top of it. One second, the mosquitoes are out and on my arms. So we will go over here. This was one of my first flower beds, and it was just a triangle. That was it. And the first year it was a fiasco because I planted anything and everything. Annual, perennial, shade, sun. And again, you learn along the way what works, what doesn't work, where your mistakes are. It took a lot. I have no horticultural degree. Everything I've done is I've learned it. Subscriptions with magazines, libraries, books, then yeah, eventually YouTube and Pinterest. So then the next one that I decided to do, you can see, yep, Creeping Charlie. Nasty stuff. So I replaced the Creeping Charlie with Snow on the Mountain. But what it was is I did just a circle around this tree, and I planted a lot of perennials in this area. I still have Snow on the Mountain, Turtle Head over here, Sun King. I had hostas, dwarf goat's beard. And I did it because I dug out all the turf, thought I got rid of all the Creeping Charlie, and then planted it. Well, this took over. I have this kind of contained the Snow on the Mountain, and but it ate almost all the perennials in here. There might be a little hosta in here. There is a hosta back here, but I'm leaving the Snow on the Mountain. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to connect the two to make it cohesive. It's, again, the one thing with gardening, especially when you first start out, you kind of I made like individual gardens. And eventually, I just wanted to combine everything to make it look a little more fluid. Is that the... I don't know. Just a little more natural. It is going to be an issue keeping the snow on the mountain in check here. So I stay on top of that as much as I can. But it is pretty. And it is definitely covering that area. But I kind of replace one thug with another thug. And I don't like to use pesticides. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. For some reason, the Creeping Charlie just took over this year. But yeah, so that is why I combined these. Oh, I was going to go over here. And I keep my flower beds away from the property line just so when the neighbors are mowing, they don't have to worry about my beds. And I mean, there is definitely room for expansion, but I have a lot. And then I have more Creeping Charlie back here. Yep. And then my property line goes up to this tree here. So you can see I have a lot. We'll walk this way. That pine tree is mine, so the property line goes on the right side of the pine tree to the back of it. I'm gonna go over here. So this is where, as a first-time gardener, or at least 12 years ago, I did edging, but you can see it's very close to the house. I would say I probably got 2 feet there. And that's a mistake because it doesn't allow for a whole lot of planting. It's just a very straight line, and I'm not big on straight lines. So you can see where I have my holes. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to come out to that point. I might revamp it a little bit later, but this is kind of the idea for now. When I dig up the sod, I'm definitely going to fill in this. This is where my sump pump pushes out. I need that. Sorry, the mosquitoes are really bad. And it's quite breezy, so I hope you can hear this. But I need this tube through the winter. That way it doesn't freeze and it can keep pushing water out through the winter time. So that definitely has to stay. The one thing is I can change it out during the spring and summer to one of those black hoses, which I probably will do so it doesn't create this great big crater. I had thought about making a little tiny pond there, but that water pushes out pretty at a good force. Okay, I'm just gonna... Oh, I'm glad for the breeze because I got a lot of work to do. So yeah, so I think that'll look good. Sorry for the jiggliness, the mosquitoes. Crazy, you get a little rain and that's what happens. So you can see the lines a little bit better. Don't mind that. And then this I like just because I left a pathway, but you can see with these hostas here, the Sum and Substance, there is no room to put anything in front. I did have stuff in front and they just took over. So it's something where, because I mainly shade, a lot of these hostas get pretty big. So when I have, that might be maybe 2 to 3 feet there. But there's some massive leaves on that, so it's something to consider when planting that. If it was sun perennials and a more upright, maybe could get away with a little more smaller. But when I mow, I chop some of the leaves. So I know when I plant, I need to keep it about 1 foot away from the edge. I used to have rock around the entire foundation of the house, and I got rid of it. And the best thing I ever did, because I would say the next year everything grew, at least 3 times the size. The rock was okay, but believe me, when you shovel that much rock, you appreciate the mulch. This area was created for I had 2 dogs. Now I'm down to 1. And it was basically for their safety, just because taking both dogs out on leashes and getting them to potty and not tangle, I was taking one out at a time. And also having them out on like a line lead, they'd get tangled up too in there, and that was a safety issue. And I was also coming out my door and being greeted by other dogs. And so I decided to go with this. And I also wanted to do some landscaping around this fence just to soften it, since it is such a strong feature in the backyard. And I love more natural look to a garden. I could go maybe a little curvier. Again, I kind of have it planted in a straight line, but I'm okay with that here. And it can evolve. I mean, I definitely have room to put other stuff if I wanted to, and I could still expand. You see I have a lot of room here. But yeah, I just wanted to soften the kennel area and blend it with my other gardens. And yeah, I have a beagle that I went with this fence. It was a little spendier, but I couldn't do a chain link fence because when he was 2 months old, he climbed out of his playpen. So I know he's a little Houdini. He could climb out of anything. Plus, he's also wormed his way through these. He's a skinny little beagle, but still. So I had to put this on here to reinforce it too. You can't really tell, but he's a resourceful little dude. I'm gonna swing. So yeah, so that pine tree is mine. It doesn't look too healthy on this side, but the other side it's beautiful because it's getting the sun. So this entire bed here, all the way down to my vegetables, that was an entire vegetable patch. That whole length. And it's probably shrunk a little bit too. It definitely was wider, and as my trees matured, I got less and less sunlight. And where my vegetables are at down there, that's where it gets the most sun. Until they took their pine tree down over here. So it's kind of changed, but it gets morning sun, so that's okay. But yeah, that was all vegetables. Then I decided to slowly turn it into a flower bed. It's taken a long time to get to this point, and that's why I went with a lot of ground covers. Yes, they're invasive, but it's definitely filled in a lot faster. And then I decided to make an area around this tree here, just to this point. And again, basically it's because the grass around that tree, there wasn't much left. Shallow roots, it was just to make it a little bit easier. And of course, you know, as a gardener, I want to keep expanding. It's never enough. People do tell me stop, but at some point I will, but not. I have to think about the future too, to keep the beds a little bit easier to maintain. That's why I do a lot of perennials. I think annuals can get, it's a lot of work. And this year, a lot of watering. So, and then that goes around the tree. Then what happened is all of these rocks here were free. What happens is when I decide to make more gardens is when I start seeing these rocks for free. People just don't want them anymore. I did not pay for any of them, so that was, you know, which is good and bad, because I know there's some more rocks in somewhere. I'm not sure if they're free, so I'm waiting for the sign. Bigger. So I might put, if they do want to get rid of them, maybe just as kind of a little structure in here. Yeah, so then this was created too. And again, I went with kind of a curvier look. Some of these hosses in here are from my other gardens and have been split. So it is something where if I wanted to, I could maybe incorporate the pine tree. Maybe, because you see this here is deep shade. And I think planting around pine trees is difficult because they suck up a lot of moisture in the ground. But yeah, that would get not a lot of sun, maybe a little filtered, but I think 2 hours would be pushing it. which is good for some, is okay for some stuff. But I think I'm just going to keep it like that, because who knows, that pine tree may come down at some point. So the expansion of my flower beds usually is, well, boredom sometimes, but also when I get the rocks. A lot of these beds have been created with just putting cardboard down and putting mulch on top and letting it sit there for, well, my season I won't be able to plant now till next year, usually about May. So this used to be all vegetable. I do miss it. I definitely like in-ground vegetable gardening a bit better than raised bed gardening. It's just this area back here. The other issue I was having is this dips in here. So lots of water sits in here when we have heavy rainfalls, which I usually get a lot of in my climate here. And most of my neighbors spray for weeds. And so all my vegetables were sitting in chemicals. And so basically, I'm not going to eat that. That's gross. Plus, with sitting in that much water, they would rot. So you can see I have rocks here too. This is a little bit of a mess here just because the primrose is coming out into the grass, and I'm leaving it. I really like that primrose. And then this flower bed here was created because I had an above ground pool. Mosquitoes again. And for, I would say, at least 5 years. And finally, it was a lot of work. It was a struggle to get my nieces and nephews to even want to use it. I liked it, I'm not going to lie, especially this season would have been nice, but I think this was definitely worth it. So that's how this area was created. And then it just keeps expanding. And then this area here was basically because I had a fire pit here for the longest time, and I got rid of it. And I just kind of combined it into this area. Made that kind of a veggie bed, but I might turn that into an herb bed. I'm not sure. So yeah, they've just evolved over the years as, like I said, I get bored, or especially in the wintertime when you start thinking about how to make the gardens look a bit better. And I try and use the existing perennials that I have in my beds. I'm not going to lie, I love going to garden centers and getting some stuff in online. I am addicted. So I do that a lot. I've been doing that lately. And then these beds were added. And I was going to do vegetables in here when I did this, and then I switched because this is also a nice privacy area. So it's kind of hard to see. Can I scoot through here? Bear with me. And eventually they might be turned into vegetable beds. But I've just found that what I plant is pretty much enough for me in this little area. So yeah, so where I have the hydrangeas and the lilacs here, what it was is this was created, and then it just kind of stopped here. And then I'm like, you know, I'm just going to continue this line down. That way it just kind of connects everything. And also it makes for easier mowing. Don't pay attention, I have a lot of weeds back here. It's not an area that I really focus on a whole lot. When I get to it, I get to it. But yeah, I just kept coming down here. I have a lot of cleanup to do. And then my property line goes to here. So if that gives you kind of an idea where my property lines are, yes. I mean, this used to even be more vegetable. It was almost this entire area, and it just, the grass grew in and it shrunk over the years. So yeah, as a first-time gardener, you make a lot of mistakes. Like I said, you start learning the difference between annuals, perennials, sun lovers, shade lovers. If you like straight lines, go with straight lines. That is up to the individual. I have an aunt who definitely likes straight lines, and no problem with that. She likes a very neat, tidy looking garden. I try and go more natural with it. Like this right here, I could probably come out a little bit more, make it more curvy. And eventually I might, just to make room for more flowers. Like I said, I think gardeners are never content. There's always room for improvement. Not saying that my gardens are horrible. I'm just saying, you like to tweak things. And I have a hosta obsession. So that also kind of influences what I want to do. I'm not going to lie. This new area that I'm going to be creating next year is a little daunting for me. I need to sit back and figure out how I want to do that. I want to definitely incorporate some shrubs into it. It's trying to find what works too, especially in a shadier area. I'm not full shade, so I have a little leeway with that. But definitely it's something, and I know from spring, summer, fall, now the light shines differently. Right now in the morning, this area in fall gets a lot of morning sun. And it'll definitely get a lot of sun in the spring because my trees don't leaf out till about the third week in May. But it's pretty shady from June and July. But yeah, it's going to be something. And I was always talking too about connecting these two gardens at some point. I'm not sure. Like I said, it just depends if I can find more rock for free. I did do edging over here that I had gotten from a big box store. I like it. It's just, it's expensive. So it's not something that I would recommend, especially if you're a first-time gardener. I went with it because, well, it's just basically pegs and nailing it into the ground. I'll show you where I have some issues. I have very shallow roots. And that's why the rocks work out really good for me, or just no edging completely, because try and work with that. And I like it when you see paving that it's stacked, but those roots would just push it up and it would be horrible. But you can see down in here I have some gaps, but a big old tree root right there. And then here I had to leave this gap down here because there was a tree root. And I can't get through that. But this is how it's put in, these big pegs, and that's it. So it works out for now. Eventually it might be something that I do away with, but I do that for the snow on the mountain. Because it does creep out into the yard, but if I wouldn't have any edging at all, I think it would just take over. So yeah, so I love it when you guys leave comments and ask questions. It definitely inspires me to do different videos, because I feel sometimes that you always see the same tour over and over and over, and not much is changing, and it doesn't. But I do like to show you the differences with the seasons, how things progress. But your comments definitely inspire me. Again, I'm still, it looks like a lot, but I have a lot of yard. So from the street, it doesn't look like too much. But yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed this tour of how my gardens have evolved over the years. And this has been a 10, 12, maybe 15-year process. And the other thing that has changed too is this house used to have just a gravel driveway. So I decided to, cement it out, say 10 years ago. Time flies, doesn't it? So what it was just here. That's all that, and then I wanted it to curve a little bit to be a little more natural. And then I decided I wanted to expand around here so I can park another vehicle, or I can have a place to put my barrels, also my bike and whatnot, and grill, because I just have a one-car garage. And then I had decided to just do a wraparound little patio area to sit. So again, that's evolved. I think the one thing that if you can take away from this, I definitely would have expanded it just a little bit more, because this works out, but it's a little narrow right here if people are walking through, especially if I have more chairs set up. But it works for me, so I'm definitely not gonna fret about that. So yeah, so I was gonna cut it short, and then all of a sudden I got talking again. Go figure. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this, and bye for now.